Everything is impossible until it is done. The famous words of Nelson Mandela, an iconic visionary and a humanitarian who also taught us that in business and in life, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Hello to you and welcome to episode 9 of Lift as We Rise. I'm your host, Roshni Gajjar. Today we explore the IRONMAN South Africa success story, an event that inspires purpose-driven actions, commands courage, garners trust, and delivers hope across its field of athletes, its sponsors, the host cities, and of course, its international stakeholders. Amongst the fast and agile, which discipline represents the fittest type of athlete? This is the question that sparked the Ironman event in Hawaii way back in 1978. Navy Commander John Collins and his wife Judy responded to this question by using their imagination. They combined 3 events: the Waikiki Rough Water Swim, the Round Aho Bike Race, and the Honolulu Marathon. The winner, they declared, we'll call the Ironman. The rest is history. Fast forward to 2004, the championship lands on African soil and chose the Nelson Mandela Bay as its host city. An event of such magnitude and success requires visionary leadership, effective partnerships, trust, and shared accountability. So to unpack the IRONMAN South Africa strategy and operating model, I'm really excited to be speaking to the game changers behind this event. I'm speaking today to Paul Wolf, Director of IRONMAN South Africa, Charmaine Williams, Director Sports and Recreation at the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, and Sean Vanek, the Chairperson of the Nelson Mandela Bay Tourism. Greetings to all of you, and thank you for investing your time to speak to us and also to your listeners today.
Hi, Roshni. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, Roshni.
Lovely to have you, Charmaine and Sean. So let's get into it. Paul, sports has always been a catalyst for transformative change in South Africa. And together with your team, you have turned an idea into a world-class event and also put Nelson Mandela Bay on the global triathlon map, along, of course, with the Buffalo City and the city of Durban. I was born in the Nelson Mandela Bay, and watching and volunteering in the IRONMAN South Africa event every year always fills me up with pride and a can-do spirit. The city most definitely comes alive during March and April. How did the event come to South Africa and why the Nelson Mandela Bay?
So when you look at it, it was actually 2 years in Cape Town. In those days, it was a franchise. The guy that owned it in Cape Town, the rand didn't do too well that specific year, and because the race is hosted in US dollars, because obviously it's a US dollar franchise, he lost a lot of money. So I was actually in those days still looking after EP Rugby. I was their biokineticist and fitness coach, and I was actually supposed to go and watch the event from Stellenbosch, which was down in Gordons Bay. The weather was atrocious. The guys got blown off the course. And yeah, he actually gave the franchise back after that year. One of my patients, Keith Bowler, who's now my business partner, well, we both work for Ironman now. We came up with a concept back then, and then approached the World Triathlon Corporation for the franchise. They said, "Oh, sorry, you South Africans messed it up." We actually gave the franchise to some Europeans, and we got hold of those guys. They decided they're going to go to Durban first, then to Cape Town, and Port Elizabeth is like everyone else's attitude to the Eastern Cape. What is Port Elizabeth? And the guy flew in now and didn't come right in Cape Town and Durban. We had a meeting on that week, I think it was on the Wednesday. By the Friday, we had formed a company. He flew to Kona the following weekend, and he phoned us from Kona saying, if you guys can raise the money, in those days it was done by Specsavers. In the January, you can host your very first, in those days, it was called a half Ironman. We then approached the city, and lo and behold, it all happened. I got out my company, Keith got out his company within 3 months, never put an event together, and we created Ironman and put the very first one of 480 athletes on the PEB track. We then obviously had to raise a lot more money and approach a lot of sponsors, and everyone said to us, well, why the Eastern Cape? So we said to them, well, obviously you don't know Port Elizabeth in those days, the name. It's one of the most well-kept secrets in our country. It's a beautiful venue. It's a beautiful people. The city's easy to work in, and that is why. And that is what created this race to become such an icon. It just fitted in with the ethos of the city. It fitted in with the ethos of the people, and it just went from strength to strength over the years.
Well, Paul, we'll talk about opportunity and most certainly agility. And to those who think that Port Elizabeth is the windy city, there you have it. You know, straight from Paul, that it actually moved from Cape Town to here because of the wind conditions over there. Really interesting, Paul. And about 16 years later, we're still here. So you mentioned Specsavers, and the founder and CEO of Specsavers, Mr. Brian Dowley, he is a local entrepreneur. He was one of your first corporate sponsors of the event. And when he asked why he was such an early adopter and a sponsor to the event, he simply said, it feels right. It feels like the right thing to do for the Nelson Mandela Bay. That was 16 years ago. Charmaine, Paul, Sean, what value has the IRONMAN South Africa event unlocked for a host city like the Nelson Mandela Bay and also the Eastern Cape in terms of economic growth and socioeconomic development? Charmaine, let's start with you.
Thank you, Roshni. I think the economic impact of an event like the Ironman into the city was enormous. And if we just want to look at figures, you know, it is amazing that the total direct expenditure over the period of the Ironman was in the region of 394 million rand. And then if we look at how many people attended the event, just from an athlete perspective, we had more than 4,000, I think 4,188 participants, athletes. And out of that number, 90% were foreign athletes. And then, of course, you know, that means that a big increase in terms of tourism spent in the city. But over and above, I think the total contribution to the city's GDP was in the region of 731 million rand. So that is just in rands and cents, but I think the contribution in terms of the entire city was much more, because we had to do a number of road infrastructure upgrades, and that has left a lasting impact. Yes, we had a bit of a number of headaches regarding that, but in the end, I think we managed to upgrade the most critical portions of the race route to ensure that especially the cyclists have a good experience. And then I think there was an immense contribution and impact in terms of just the city administration and bringing together people internally, external stakeholders, different government departments, in order to work towards this common goal of hosting such a prestigious event. I'm reminded of the capacity that has been built internally, because we established a technical steering committee, and at that moment we had a city manager that was very precise about accountability and making sure that every administration or official under the administration does what they are supposed to do. And it was very comforting at times to report when a specific directorate did not toe the line or responded accordingly. So I think that teamwork I will always cherish. And then, of course, water safety was a very critical element to make the Ironman a success, which we had an opportunity to capacitate our own municipal lifeguards to a huge extent, increase on their equipment like jet skis, and all the additional equipment that was needed. So you always sigh, give a sigh of relief after the first leg of any triathlon event when the swimming leg has gone without any casualties. So I think that capacity that was built institutionally in the different departments and within the administration is worth mentioning. And the fact that we were able to appoint a special project manager during that time, because in my own position as the director, I had many other responsibilities, and I had to really indicate that this is the magnitude of this project needs focused attention, a person who can drive every detailed aspect of the preparations. And we were fortunate that we had an official in budget and treasury that we could pinch for this position. And I think Rebecca, who was appointed as our project manager, really made a huge contribution in ensuring that our planning and preparation was precise. There were many other values that were added. For an example, I'm not sure if I must mention at this stage the issue of legacy, the issue of the development of triathlon that took place, and the fact that because of the World Champs, the Foundation for Triathlon has committed 500,000 Rand towards the building of a swimming pool in the warmer area. Now, that is the kind of thing that you want to see when the city invests such a huge amount of capital and other resources to host an event like this, because you need to ensure that there is a sustainable legacy left after everybody has left the city. I think just the overall improvement and upgrades in terms of infrastructure and other things in the city, and the opportunity it offered a wide spectrum of citizens to participate, not in the event itself, but economically through cultural exposure and even work opportunities, being volunteers during such a prestigious event. It's an experience in its own. So I think that this event has added a lot of value into the city and into the people of Nelson Mandela Bay.
Wow, Charmaine, that's fantastic to hear. And from your side, were some of these infrastructure development, injection into sports development programs, was it part of your department's strategic objectives, or did in some way the IRONMAN strategy inform where your funds were allocated?
No, Roshni, I think it was part of our strategy, because before we fund and spend money in any project, we want to make sure that strategic objectives of the department is met. And with sport, there's always an area of development. So as part of that, we had the Triathlon Festival, which was a side festival run at various venues across the Nelson Mandela Bay city, touching Utenate, touching Warmer, other township areas, to ensure that the sport of triathlon is promoted. And by working with the schools on the Triathlon Festival program, we made sure that a lot of youngsters get exposed to teaching them how to cycle, because there were those that could not even know how to handle themselves on a bicycle. In some of the facilities where we had pools, we brought the different disciplines together to expose them also to swimming, to cycling, and of course to running, but through fun activities, not necessarily competitively inclined. And I think that was a huge boost. Also, through partnership with Quebeca, we had a program for ambassadors, where we trained more than 40 youth, predominantly from the warmer area, in partnership with Quebeca, foundation where they sponsored the bicycles, and through that, those youth members were equipped to patrol the Ironman route, if I can put it like that, during the day, making sure that cyclists that are practicing along the route are safe. We had a few glitches, but those will always be there. But on the whole, that was one of the legacies as well, the city ambassadors that we created, because over and above them cycling, they will also learn soft skills of changing tires, repairing the punctures and things like that. They had two-way radios that they could communicate with each other if there was trouble at a particular spot. Yeah, now and then there were a few incidents, or there were a few lazy ones who decide to camp out on a particular spot. But I think that was a huge investment in human capital and from a social aspect, because they might not have been paid, but they gained a number of additional skills in the process.
Thank you for that detailed overview, Charmaine. Let's turn the question to Sean. From a tourism perspective, Sean, what value has Ironman South Africa unlocked in your sector?
Roshni, a lot. And isn't it nice to reflect on Keith and Paul on the one side and Charmaine and the team on the other side, to have the vision to bring this event to Nelson Mandela Bay and all the work that went with it in those days. Now, a lot of people talk about triple bottom lines, but the reality is that events create at least 7 benefits. It just is interesting to look at, because you want to decide where to invest your money for tourism. And think about these. Think about how extremely well Ironman has achieved this. Firstly, it brings visitors to Nelson Mandela Bay, and many of them would not have been here before. So they might come for Ironman and then come back for their holidays. It creates a spend at all of our tourism businesses and boosts everything right through the community. It exposes our tourism experiences. And that's one of the big things that I think we need to achieve. Nelson Mandela Bay has quite a narrow perception in the market, especially the overseas market, of what we have. Think about that media coverage that we get out of that. You know, you can never buy that type of media coverage. And yeah, I sat over the last couple of years and watched that footage from the helicopter over just before the Skunies Road. I mean, it looked incredible, and that coverage is incredible for us. One of the great things about events as well is that people become loyal to them, and they come back again. We had, just as an aside, an incredible case study on that in 2010 when I was down in Knysna, and everyone said, no, it's clashing with the World Cup, the Oyster Festival, so we need to move it. And we resisted that. And in that year, we still got 96% of the entries in all of the events that we got. So you can see there, even though you had this huge global event competing for people's attention, that competitors are incredibly loyal. The wonderful thing about this, as the second last of those 7, is that it creates local pride. I mean, I have seldom anywhere in South Africa at the event seen the type of vibe that you find with Ironman. People walking around the locals going, hey, this is my city, hey? And we putting this together, and the vibe along the way, as Paul has said, where you have all of those awnings and things, and people book them the night before. It is electric, and it just does the belief in Nelson Mandela Bay so much good with the locals. And then probably in tourism nowadays, there's the new concept of recommendation marketing. And yeah, we used to spend a lot of time on advertising direct to tourism markets and also tour operators and that. But the digital revolution has changed that totally. And nowadays, destination popularity is dominated by social media and recommendation websites, largely because people trust them more. You know, they trust their friend or the person in their social group that they would tell the truth, and they would see these beautiful pictures with stories from them. And there was a lovely figure the other day about Facebook where they say 52% of Facebookers who tried a new destination were inspired by the post of their friends. So think about those 7 things. Yeah, the Ironman event has fulfilled all of those to overflowing. And yeah, I think it's given us so much momentum in the tourism market and as locals. And yeah, I can carry on raving about it. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to tourism in our metro.
Thank you, Sean, for describing the event with such passion and enthusiasm. It certainly feels like that to anyone who's been here to watch the event. Paul, let's turn that question to you then. 16 years later, you've heard Charmaine speak about it, 731 million Rand contribution to the economy, 90% of which comes from foreign sources. Sean talking about the pride and the energy and the spirit in the city, infrastructure development, socio-economic development. Did you think it would come to this? How do you feel hearing the sentiments?
Yeah, no, it grew way past our what we envisaged in the beginning. But let's just get a bit of clarity here. So what Charmaine is talking about was the World Championships, which we had in 2018. It wasn't the normal African Championship. So that was the 70.3. So the half Ironman distance. So 1.9K sea swim, 90K cycle, and a 21.1K run. We had the ladies on the Saturday, men on the Sundays, and those were all internationals. But besides, I think out of the almost 5,000 athletes, about 300 were South Africans. The rest were all internationals. Put us on the world map because everybody tenders for that. So we were competing against European countries, and Nelson Mandela Bay won that right against European countries, which was phenomenal. So every place we raced in the world that year, you had to win your slot somewhere, and at slot allocation, you knew you were going to Nelson Mandela Bay. So your slots were to the Nelson Mandela Bay in South Africa. So everywhere in the world, in Australia, New Zealand, in Timbuktu, where there was a 70.3, you knew next year the World Championships was in Nelson Mandela Bay. So you had those people taking their slots to come to us. Our normal race is our Ironman African Champs, which is every April, which is the 3.8K sea swim, 180K cycle, and a 42K run. 17 hours to complete it in. So if you look at it, when we had Standard Bank as our title sponsor, we were the first event ever to have 17 hours of live TV. Now you must imagine to put that show together, what that took. But we had 17 hours in 2018 of live TV, which was done through SuperSport, but it was a phenomenal show. Mm-hmm. World Championships, we actually had Facebook Live for 2 days. So you must know that has been streamed around the world, our beachfront, our entire course. It was the highest Facebook watch showed out of any other sporting event that they put on there. It was the highest that year. So it was just, as Sean was saying, the exposure the city got out of it is you could be 10 years of shows going around, and the cost to get there would not have given you that exposure. And that's just what this event does. It's just an event that people aspire to do, pay a lot of money to do, and that's why we only have 2,000 athletes doing the African Championships, but everyone brings average 3.2 to 3.5 people with them, because it's quite a selfish sport. You spend a lot of hours training, so you always take your family with you. So you make it a holiday destination. So even if you're a South African, you will still all bring your family, your granny, your grandpa, your coach, your whoever's with you comes to the event. And because you have to be there for 4 days minimum to get ready for the event, they all come with you. And then hopefully you can stay there afterwards as well. So it really does. It's not a one-day event. It's a minimum for an IRONMAN, 7,000 visitors to your city over that time. And these guys are high income earners, so they spend more money when they're in your city. And that's where we have to, as tourism and as locals, do a better job at enticing these guys to depart to some of those greenbacks while they're here. On that side note a bit, we have an MPO called IRONMAN for the Kids, which we raised over 2 million rand every single year, and we only spend that money on MPOs in our city where we're racing. So another thing that we did, we've allocated that money towards the pool in Warmer, but we also built a creche from scratch. We bought a creche and we handed that over from the foundation in the weekend of the IRONMAN 70.3. So that's also in Warmer. More Than Welcome was actually there fixing up a few gutters in that last week. So it's just something that we love as part of our legacy to this city, building creches and looking after the kids. IRONMAN for the Kids, as it says, it has to go to the kids, and we want to do capital projects. So it's 2 million rand a year that we are supporting in PE with that at the moment.
Thanks, Charmaine, Paul, and Sean. And one of the aspects we haven't spoken about is, along with the socioeconomic upliftment, the experience for the athletes, the tourism effects, and the experience that we give to people who visit. It's also an amazing opportunity for our volunteers. So, Paul, you were speaking about the fantastic efforts from a media side, and I was working with the international media team on the World Champs event. And just as a volunteer, it was such a privilege to be part of such an international digital marketing campaign. One just learned so much from it, not even having participated. So 2020 showed up things that are not working, but it also showed up that things can work in a way to build better if we have a common vision. If we look at the IRONMAN South Africa as a business model and take it as a case study, it's, you've just highlighted that its success is largely dependent on effective partnerships with the city, with its citizens, and also, of course, with the community. So from your experience, Paul, Sean, and Charmaine, what would you say have been the key success factors to make this such a world-class event? And also share with us some of the challenges that you've experienced to take the event from good to great. Let's start with Paul.
The community, it has to be a community-based event. It's got the city has to take ownership of it. If you look at it, virtually every single institute of higher education, each one of the departments, so be it the biokinetics department, be it the media department, be it whichever department, we've had a twinning with those different departments, because those students, you need up to 3,000 volunteers to make this event a success. So if you don't have those buy-ins and the passion of the people, you just don't, you can't put on this type of event. It's not IRONMAN that does it. It's actually the city, the surroundings, the companies. The weekend we have the corporate race before. How many corporates all get involved in it? Everybody wants to be part of this event, which puts our city on the map. So I think the Eastern Cape doesn't always work together, doesn't always believe we can do things to the level of maybe a Cape Town or Johannesburg or wherever. And I think by looking at this little case study or what we've been able to achieve, that the sky's the limit for us if we just put our minds to it and work together, not against each other. There's always issues, there's always problems, but you know what? If the team pulls together, you can overcome so much. And I think Charmaine and I have walked a lot of paths and bumped a lot of heads along the way, but when the crunch comes to the crunch, we're all pulling together on the day to make the event success. And to me, that's the secret to this thing, is having a common vision and everyone working and pulling in the same direction at the final moment. And touch wood, we've managed to pull this off for 17 years without any major hiccups. We've had that wind come through, we dropped a tent, we've chased all the VIPs out, we changed that into a medical tent, going to cancel the race because of the wind, and the whole finish line chanting, no, and with that, the wind just stopped. And you know what? This city and us pulled it together, and we carried on racing for another 4 hours and put the event together and still did an awards the next night, finding a whole new venue, dressing that venue, the whole team working together. So it's just an example of what can be achieved if people pull together.
Thank you, Paul. Charmaine, that's the private sector and the event management perspective. How has it been from the city side?
Well, I can agree with Paul that there are times when we have budget, but on the whole, we always realize we can push the organizers up to a certain point, but when the city has to agree on certain things, we just had to for the success, to ensure the success of the event. I think one of the most important aspects from a city perspective is always to ensure that there is credible leadership at the helm, quick decision making, and that, you know, the integrity of the city leadership is of such a nature, and that it's unquestionable. I'm raising this because sometimes, because of the absence of that, we have delayed decision making, and delayed decision making or concise decision making sometimes impact negatively on the organizing of the event, or it could even scare off event organizers not to bring strategic events to the city. So I think we work well as a team with IRONMAN in particular, but also when you look at the private sector involvement or contribution, I think there is a huge opportunity for that to improve. And, you know, it's not like with some of the event organizers where you have to wonder whether you are making a good investment. There were times when IRONMAN did not have a naming rights sponsor, for an example, 1 or 2 years. And I don't even know for the coming year, Paul, if you have a naming rights sponsor. But I'm raising this because I think we can leverage much more from private sector involvement. And that partnership needs to be strengthened and cemented by the city. But I'm also very much aware that private sector likes to invest where there's stability and where they know that the money that they've invested is safe, and it won't be squandered on things that for which it was not intended. I do think that when I look at how the provincial departments worked with us, not necessarily in terms of financial contribution, but just to know that we had certain department support, especially from the police commissioner's side on the safety and security aspects. And then also, I'm reminded of the fact that the National Department of Sport also assisted, especially when we had challenges with flights at one point, and clearing international athletes, and even airports company AXA. They assisted in a big way when there were athletes whose luggage and their critical bicycles that they need for the competition could not be loaded on the plane, and there were delayed flights. So, you know, by having had that working towards a common goal and every department pulling their weight, we there were some of those crises that we were faced with that we could avert simply by being able to have a direct call to Mandela, for an example, at the time, and the airport's company manager who could make things happen from Joburg Airport up to here. So also, I think we must commend the accommodation sector. Yes, it was an opportunity for them to have to be fully booked. However, they did consider giving preferential rates during the time, and also I have observed during some of the major events that the city hosts. So that kind of collaboration and knowing that you can have a partner at the private sector does help and contribute towards making successful events. I think the other important thing that I perhaps just need to mention, which we sometimes forget, we had the ECDC, Eastgate Development Corporation, during the World Champs. We had them invested to the value of about 500,000 Rand to ensure that they create opportunity for local artists. When I say local, beneficiation across the Eastern Cape. And through that, we could create the first ever Nelson Mandela Bay Craft Village during a major event. And I think Paul, you will recall, for the winning trophies, we have commissioned a competition, and local artists could design a winning trophy. And one of our own local artists, Rachel Nieuwoud, won that competition, and her design became the design for the winning trophies that were awarded during prize giving. And that design of the trophy was called Spirit of the Bay. So there's a lot that can happen if different departments from public sector work together, but also we will always need the private sector to buy into what we are doing to support some of these major events that the city wants to host.
Thanks, Charmaine. Sean, turning this question to you around the success factors and also the challenges, how has it been from the tourism perspective?
I think, yeah, it is something we can do more with from a tourism point of view in exposing what we have, and it's something we undertook to take further with Paul and the guys. I think, and I see a question which links to yours from Johan Mettler on the chat about what we can do to get more events into the metro. It takes two things, Roshni. It takes a municipality and council who acknowledge the value of events. And that's important. We have that partnership from an Ironman point of view. And on the other side, it takes visionaries who have unlimited energy and just want to make things happen for their metro and their province and so on. And clearly that, and just going back to Charmaine and her teams, you've got to be able to recognize that vision and that passion, because it's very easy to give money out to people who want to organize events, and you will always be challenged on it. But if you can develop a feel for what is going to grow, when someone comes into you, you can see either this person wants to make money out of the event, or this person has a vision and is so driven that even when the wind blows the tent down, the marquee down, it's not going to affect them at all. And I think that is what's going to help us. We had a guy at Nelson Mandela Bay Tourism who I think most of both Charmaine and Paul will remember, William Tyson. He was a young guy, a windsurfer, and we were talking about being the water sport capital of Africa at that stage. And he and a couple of the other guys drove that. But William, we set him the objective of going out and getting the World Championships. And William, together with the locals, that's also really important, that the club or the enthusiasts or whatever it is behind it get involved. And 2 years later, we had the World Championships here. And that was based on a young man. We had no experience as an event organizer. He was just a competitor, and everyone got behind that. And I think so often, and this is probably the case with Paul and them as they chase things, people are drawn to positivity, to excitement and vision and that. And I think if we get that right, things will grow. There's a wonderful seeding example, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to Neisner when we were there. We put together a little program for new events, and we said, if we feel that passion with you as an organizer, we will put 30,000 Rand towards your event. We will fly down 4 media people, and we'll organize 50 beds at our different members for media, and obviously we'll promote it through our channels. And it's tough because, and Charmaine will know this, it was tough because people go, why do you give them sponsorship and not us? And yeah, how do you explain how you judge passion and that type of thing? But through it all, we ended up with 8 new events, including what is now a huge event, the Jaguar Samola Hill Climb, mountain bike events, and various other things. So I think, to Johan's question and yours, it takes people at the Metro who appreciate what events can do, and however difficult it is. I know how, Charmaine has probably chewed her arm off like me, waiting for council to approve things and so on. But it takes committed people who work with visionaries. You can spot vision and passion a mile off. And I know the challenge I'm setting with that. And then the other thing, of course, is that the event is focused on tourism. If it's going to be a tourism event, that's what it must be focused on. The locals get brought into it, as Charmaine was saying about the guys up at Warmer and various other projects, the monitors and so on. But you've got to go after tourism with it as your primary objective. So I think those partnerships, private, public, community, it's what the future of tourism is about. People no longer want to come in and stay at a place and then find something else to do. They want a destination experience. So in exactly the same way, our public, our municipality and that, our products, they need to start networking and making sure that from the moment people arrive in Nelson Mandela Bay until they leave, it's a networked experience, which is superb. It's not something that happens by mistake or if someone sees it in a brochure or whatever. So what has been achieved between Paul's organization and Charmaine and the municipality is a wonderful model that we can take forward, not just for events, but to bring and relaunch our tourism sector in the Metro.
Thank you to all 3 of you. And I've always said that aspiration fuels inspiration. And the reasons that you've highlighted is certainly justify why we are having this conversation. Yes, as much as it is a sporting event that athletes aspire to, it's also a business model that has been executed effectively and as a consequence had the benefits and made a real contribution to the city. And absolutely, Sean, we need more of these types of partnerships in motion as we look forward to changing the narrative of the Nelson Mandela Bay, the Eastern Cape, at times that are really tricky at the moment. So let's bring ourselves to the present then. Paul, the 2021 events have been rescheduled. It will now take place in November as opposed to the 14th of March when it was going to take place. The Buffalo City and Durban events are going to take place in June and September respectively, as I understand. There's still uncertainty around the pandemic, and there are debates that are ongoing around the vaccines. Take us into your confidence. How are you responding to these uncertainties from the spaces that you influence, and how are you working together to limit the losses of delays and cancellations that the city could potentially face? Let's start with Paul.
Okay, so IRONMAN as a company, we have a very, very specific COVID plan on what we're doing worldwide to mitigate all contact things, make sure that our cities are safe, our volunteers are safe, our athletes are safe, our spectators are safe. If you look at it, so even a sponsor like Isuzu, who's been with us, the tagline for the long run, they want to see our plan. The city wants to see our plan. So you're working with myriads of partners that all want to know that you actually have a plan in place. So we've been working. So obviously, last race we did was in January last year in Buffalo City. We then went to conference every year in Mallorca, and we were presented to the company, and that was end of January. And I said to the company, "Oh, don't worry, we'll be racing in April in Ironman. There's no issues. It's going to be happening." Well, I think the good Lord decided he was going to pull a Mickey on me, and it wasn't 2 weeks we were home, and that all changed. From that point on, we're starting as a company because all the European races started collapsing as well. We've worked tirelessly at coming up with a protocol. So we have a protocol for every single point of our race. I'm not going to bore you on this, but if anybody wants to, you can go and see it on our webpage. There's a return to policy on the race. There's a return to policy on volunteers. We've got a system in place the whole way through. So it's been a very, very difficult process because obviously, as I said, last year, January was the last time we then had the April event. We had to move those people to November. November, we moved it to April. April, now we moved it to November again. It's very difficult for people to understand your sole source of income is your entries and your sponsorships. Yes, we've had some sponsors that have really, really been good to us, and they've given us a small portion of their sponsorship in lieu of not being able to sustain an income. But the city monies have all gone. There are no new athletes coming. So only those athletes who are in the races, and we've been able to transfer, and they've bought in to the vision with us. And I must say thank you. They've been happy to move with us as we move the races. That's how passionate they are, because they so badly want to race, and we so badly want to let them race. But we are governed by the policies of the country, plus the policies of our own company. So we've got 14 full-time staff that have to be paid. So the whole of last year, we worked on 80% of salary to keep staff. We didn't want to shed staff. America and Australia shared a whole lot of staff, but in EMEA, Middle East, Europe, and Africa, which we fall under, we all went on salary cuts so that we could maintain staff. And they've been so good to us. We've been able to go through over a year of no income, and we're still all at the office as we're meant to be. But obviously, we're working hard to get the June event going. Then we've got the Buffalo City event in September. And then hopefully by November, we're almost back to normal, and we can get this race off the ground. So a lot more confident, obviously, for November race. I'm 80% to 90% sure of Durban, and East London falls in between those two. And it all depends on the so-called third wave, the inoculations happening. So again, we can only do what we can control, and we're doing that to the best of our abilities, and hoping that our sponsors, our cities, and our athletes understand where we're coming from, and that this is what we do. The only way we make an income is from events. And then hopefully from next year, we can go back to a relatively normal world that we used to live in, with a few tweaks here and there.
Thank you for that overview, Paul. Charmaine, this is requiring tremendous agility and responsiveness from the city side. How are you managing the situation?
Roshni, it's not so easy from the city perspective, as we are funding these kind of events, especially if events have been postponed and cancelled as a result of COVID. However, one of the key issues is because we avail budgets for some of these events, and because our financial years is within a particular time frame. So if between July and end of June in a particular financial year, we had to postpone most of our events, and we have paid over the sponsorship fee, there's an issue of accountability, in terms of you paid money for what? If I can put it like that, the event did not happen. So we need to now ensure that we put clauses in our agreements that basically covers eventualities like that. And whilst our agreements would normally make provision for force majeure clauses in the event of unforeseen circumstances, you have to be a little bit more detailed, especially, and I think Paul them had to be at the receiving end for the first time of getting their sponsorship in tranches, where they've been used to getting the full sponsorship upfront, and it allows them to do all their organizing. But because of COVID and because events get continuously postponed beyond a particular financial year, we had to put those checks and balances in place, and we had to amend some of our agreements at least so that we cover both parties in the event that an event does not take place. So that has taken a bit of exercise and some juggling in terms of wheeling and dealing, if I can put it like that, through our legal representatives. Not an easy exercise, because I can recall when the previous year's event had to be cancelled, it was very close to the event, and the organizers have incurred the expenses. And unfortunately, the approach from the city was, yeah, but there was no agreement, which means we haven't signed between the two parties on the dotted line, and therefore you have taken the risk of spending the money, but at the same time, the organizers had to prepare for the event. It happened with IRONMAN. It happened with us when we had to cancel hosting of the SA National Life-Saving event. And the reality is those event organizers really had incurred expenses, and now you have to say, prove that you've incurred these expenses. So I do think that brought a bit of change of thinking and our approach in terms of the legal obligations between different parties when it comes to the cancelling of events. And then, of course, there's always, the tourism opportunities that are lost for the city, the economic benefits that goes with that is lost. It almost created a bit of fatigue within the administration as well, because you plan up to a point, and then unfortunately nothing happens. So if it is just affecting us as the administration sometimes in that way, how much more the actual event organizers themselves. And then of course the new approach with regards to compliance with the COVID-19 regulations, it also impacts on us, because we had to make sure that we take a lot of our facility managers and staff through COVID-19 compliance training, appointment of compliance officers. So yes, maybe you are a caretaker or a supervisor at the facility, but you now also had to assume the additional responsibility of being a compliance officer, because we need to make sure that in each sporting event there is compliance over and above our own compliance as venue owners in particular. Yeah, so I think that I am surely looking forward to the return to normality, you know, towards the end of the year and next year.
Thank you, Charmaine. Sean, from a tourism perspective, how have, you know, what Paul and Charmaine have shared, how have these developments impacted the tourism industry in addition to what it suffered in the last year?
Yeah, Roshni, it's, my heart bleeds when I even think about tourism. The sector has been devastated. We've lost over 400 jobs. We've had businesses closing. Yeah, you realize the magnitude of it when a hotel like the Town Lodge, part of the City Lodge group here, huge hotel, closed for 5 months. Yeah, that just, it's a bit of a microcosm. You look at bed and breakfasts who during lockdown maybe had 2 guests, and tour operators, tour guides and that, who for 8-9 months didn't have a single booking. So it really is tough, and the loss of events obviously impacts on that, because a lot of the events happen out of high season. So yeah, Paul's event is a wonderful boost for us when it happens, and it will be this year as well, because November is not the sharpest tourism month that we have. We have had to think carefully and re-strategize from a tourism point of view with Nelson Mandela Bay Tourism. We've got a bunch of volunteer board members who are just absolutely amazing. I think 2 of them's businesses have gone under already, yeah, the extent. We believe that COVID, we did a couple of brainstorms trying to look at what people are going to be feeling and looking for now in a post-COVID time. All of those emotions, how we accommodate those. And I have a very firm feeling that we have more to offer to a post-COVID tourism scenario than we had before. Nelson Mandela Bay isn't about crowds and tourist attractions that have long queues and that. We're about wide open spaces, and that's what we've been pursuing, done apps and that type of thing to profile that during our holiday times. But yeah, you look at Easter, we had a occupancy of only 30% over the Easter weekend. So it's hard, but we are using this period to strategize. By the time we start picking up, and we pray that this December we'll start getting, apart from the event in November, that we'll start getting a bit of a flow of international guests again. We're not going to see 2019 levels until 2023 at the earliest. So we've basically hunkered down and said, let's strategize. Let's decide how we can fulfill the new needs of tourists and show that we're brilliant. Another thing that we're also focusing very hard on is, I don't think we nearly do enough justice to the wonderful name our metro has, Nelson Mandela Bay. I don't think from a marketing point of view, tourism marketing and that, we've taken full advantage of that. So that certainly is one of our biggest looks as far as things go. And then obviously to assist anyone and the department and everyone else with events to give them an extra platform for attracting people and publicizing them. So it's a heart-sore period. but yeah, we've got to make the most of that, make sure that when things start happening again, we come out with a refreshed package that the new tourist, not the new tourist, but the tourist with new feelings and fears and desires go, wow, let's go there.
Thanks, Sean. It seems that with what's happened over the last year and what's currently happening now, you know, everyone's required to think on their feet, and that's exactly what's happening. So last week, a report was released on the tourism indicators showing that 5% believe it's going to recover in 2021, 15% next year in 2022, 40% in 2023, and a further 40% in 2024. Now, some might be disillusioned with a short-term prognosis, but you know, the opportunity is that it's going to get back up there. So if we take the success of the Ironman story, what we've learned this year and how creative we've become, let's think futuristically. If there's an opportunity to scale up a model like the Ironman, and if we look at an area like the Nelson Mandela Bay or the Eastern Cape, what suggestions do you have for business leaders and decision makers out there around what skills, infrastructure should we be looking to develop so that we can have more such success stories to showcase in the next 3 to 10 years? Charmaine, anything stand out for you?
Roshni, I would think that in terms of infrastructure in the city broadly, we need to improve a bit more on our road infrastructure, but also just on issues of connectivity, you know, rollout of smart systems, ensuring that we become more closer to being a smart city in terms of how we utilize electricity, our water consumption, and the availability of electricity and water at the same time. And also, I would think, you know, from the municipality side, have more skilled administrators in the technical areas, like engineering, not that we don't have currently. Definitely also financial stability and making sure that we are able to have people with skills that can administer the city finances prudently and within the prescribed legislations, etc. I think for a while now, we have become too known for our huge levels of unauthorized, irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditures. Also in terms of the administrative stability, you know, how we deal with senior managers in terms of getting rid of them or how we hire them. I think we need to become a little bit more sophisticated and focused in terms of what are really the skills gaps in the city administration. And then I think also another important aspect for me is the safety aspects in the city, and you know, we've seen too many incidences of lawlessness, where if you are not satisfied with how a tender outcome has been announced or the outcome of a tender process, then you know, the issue of protest as a means of raising objections, and together with protest, people destroy municipal infrastructure. So for me, I really think that there's a lot in terms of the future that we need to improve when it comes to those critical skills and infrastructure in the city.
Thank you, Charmaine. Sean, from your side, from a tourism perspective, What skills and what infrastructure do we need to really put this region on the map internationally and locally?
Roshni, I think, yeah, once again, the new trends in tourism lend themselves to the type of experience we provide. It's not going to be big tour buses and big queues and all of that anymore. The buses will downscale and people will be looking for more immersive, hands-on type experiences in smaller groups, 6 or 8 people. And also wanting to have conversations. There'll be a deeper want for interaction with local communities and that type of thing. And so what we are hoping to do is to upskill our products and our people in all of the communities on how to provide those new types of experiences. It's no longer a product or a service. We've got to take it one up where, yeah, as opposed to serving someone a fish at a restaurant, the chef would go them and help them to prepare the fish with, yeah, fynbos type ingredients or whatever it might be. We've got almost nothing in Nelson Mandela Bay as far as food and various other things that are authentic, that are nowhere else on earth except here. And we've got to start digging away and looking at those. So the upgrading and spreading, we're working on a really exciting project at the moment in the townships, a product development plan. I think when we started looking at this, I was shocked because, yeah, you never really know. We looked at products throughout our metro in the townships who regularly get tour operators. So, yeah, anyone from a calabash to a big tour operator, and have a Facebook and Instagram site. And in all of the metro, there were only 5. So we have a lot of work to do on that area. We working in Warmer at the moment, and there are such incredibly exciting projects, which, yeah, maybe we can go into on another session. And there people are working together. The metro departments are working with us. The community, when you offer the community hope and an opportunity, I mean, I've been humbled by the responses that we've had from people and how passionate they are. And then I think probably the last thing that, it's the oldest challenge all of us have had is communication. Yeah, we just don't tell people enough about what we're doing and what we're achieving. So our members, our council members about tourism, the locals, that type of thing. And I think that's a real area that we've got to focus on. We're so busy doing things and, yeah, making things happen that we forget to tell people and let them get involved. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm expressing it as well as I want to. Drawing people in to what you're doing and getting them enthusiastic about it as opposed to just doing it yourself. So I think there's a lot of work to do, and exciting, innovative work that we can do there, focusing on communication. We are very excited about as things start happening again. Yeah, as much as there might not be as many tourists and visitors, and it'll only build up to 2024, there is a flux in the market. There's an opportunity for the first time for destinations to grab extra market share because of recommendation marketing and people speaking on social media and recommendation sites. You no longer need a big budget. You just need to give great experiences that your visitors, your current visitors, tell your future potential visitors about. I've said the guys, the objective of Nelson Mandela Bay becoming the third in the top 3 most recommended destinations in Africa. And that's the type of thing we'll work towards. We'll leverage the changes that are happening in tourism, and we will do everything we can to help this devastated sector, to make people, re-employ people, to create SMMEs and spread the rewards of tourism more equally throughout our metro. There's just such juicy stuff to get stuck into that we can't sit back and just let our hearts bleed about what's happening. We've got to accept the challenge and get stuck in. And as you said early on, it's all about partnerships.
Okay, so Charmaine, you spoke about the need for leadership and effective systems of accountability. Sean, you spoke about innovation, creation, creativity, systems of communication, vision. Paul, what can we do better in the Nelson Mandela Bay in the Eastern Cape? And you also manage the Cape Epic event, which is another international event. What can we learn, and where can we put our efforts to try and take this from good to great for Ironman and other events?
You know, an athlete is not a peculiar person, but he's a very driven and self-focused person. And he probably puts up with maybe not the best environment if the race is a success. So what I'm trying to get at, he might not be in the best room, he might not have the best experience of the city, but he has a phenomenal day on the day. It's a success for him in that race because he's had a great day. But the problem is with when he brings his family, his friends, and all the other people with him, they're only on the side of the road cheering him on, but they need to be entertained for the other 5 days. And there's a big problem I'm not going to mention, but with one of our other races, the numbers are just going down, 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 because that city, working with the city and what the city does for the event is phenomenal. But there is nothing at all for the spectators and the people coming to that event to do. And it's just going from 3,000, it's just down, 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 it's going down. And that is one of the biggest things that we need to avoid here in Nelson Mandela Bay. We have to get our eateries along our beachfront. There is nothing, let's just be honest. At the moment, there is nothing on our beachfront that would entertain an international person the standard they used to when they're racing anywhere else in the world. So when he comes back again, he's going to say, why must I bring my family? Why are they doing that? We are not doing anything for them. They're not safe. There's no place to eat. There's no coffee shops. All those things are not there. What we do on the race day is, as I say, is a beyond approach. We do a phenomenal job. But we've got to work on our tourist packages. We have to work on our eateries. We have to work on our cities. When you're cycling around the city, we used to be known as the cleanest city in the country. We're definitely nowhere at the moment. There's points where I'm actually embarrassed to move around our city. The roads aren't cut, there's dirt, and I don't want to go into that, but the problem is when we bring in people into our city, and especially internationals, when they see that, they're going to go back and they're going to go and tell that, and one bad person creates 1,000 bad reactions, even though they've never been here. So again, coming back to what I'm trying to get at is we need to work as a common vision between the city, ourselves, tourism, to put this city of ours on the map. Yes, I understand we're in a socially suppressed environment, but if we only spend our money in uplifting certain areas and not maintaining what we have, there is no further income coming in. There's no further exposure. It's a very dangerous or very difficult juggling act, but we cannot, as an event, I'm talking selfishly, let the roads deteriorate any further. Already, it's becoming a major issue. The road slipping into the sea. In a few years' time, we're not going to be able to go over Maitland because that road is disappearing. Yes, I know it falls under Eastern Cape and Vishu, but we need to lobby from Nelson Mandela Bay to upgrade that road. 80% of the Ironman route sits under provincial, not under city. So I can't thing, and they did a phenomenal job taking some of the city money, trying to upgrade for the World Championships. But if we don't get that buy-in from provincial, we are in trouble, as all the events that use our roads in Nelson Mandela Bay at the moment. So again, we as business and our business chamber, sporting events, tourism, and the city, we actually should be getting to a Indaba together and say, common goal, what are we trying to achieve in 2, 3, 5 years time, and how do we bring in these other events like a Cape Epic or whatever else to bring those people into our city, so people don't just come in here and fly out of our city the next day to go and do something else, where they could be doing so much and spending the money in our area.
Thanks, Paul, for that very intentional response. And I think what you've put on the table is really a call to action. And if we can tackle some of these, the suggestions that you have made, then most certainly what I'm hearing there are great opportunities for SMEs, for more tourism, and just to do things better and to really leverage the natural assets that we have in our city to take it from good to great. So, we have run out of time. Paul, I wanted to chat to you a little bit about the work of the IRONMAN Foundation in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, but we won't have time for that. You are the man who has the most heartbreaking job of firing that finish gun at 12 o'clock at the end of an Ironman event. And I do feel sorry for you. So I'd like you to help us wrap this up. Keith Bowler, the Managing Director of IRONMAN South Africa, sums it up quite eloquently when he said, it is the inspirational individual stories and experiences that truly make up the heart of Ironman. Paul, share with us your best story of someone who was lacking the self-belief, but managed to go from novice to a finisher.
Okay, so when we first started this company, I was also just learning to swim. I was a runner, but I was in the Virgin Active actually doing a training session in the pool, and there was this young guy walking next to the pool, built phenomenally well as an endurance athlete. And then he put on a pair of goggles and dived into the water, and he started cleaning the wall. And I thought to myself, no, I need to talk to this guy. Luckily, I could speak a bit closer. So I stopped and I started chatting to him, and his name was Hansen Sangapi. Now, Hansen was a phenomenal, most down-to-earth guy I've ever met. Most humble, could run a 32-minute 10K without doing much training. He just was that type of athlete. So I said to him, hey, I see you're not scared of the water. We're starting this event in 3 months' time in Nelson Mandela Bay called the Ironman. And I know that the biggest fear is actually put your head in the water to swim. Would you be interested if I got you into this event and taught you to swim and got someone to help you swim? Would you be interested in doing it? And that was Hansen. He said, I'm in. Well, in 3 months, he did a 1.9K sea swim, 90K cycle, never cycled properly either. So he did 2 new sports altogether in 3 months and then completed it with ease, the 70.3. Long story short, he was part of a program called Sia Pambele, which is very, very sad, is no longer around. We had eventually 30 people that could not afford to do Ironman that actually did the program. But long story short, he actually ended up going with Standard Bank, had some slots to the World Championships, and I took him to Kona, Hawaii in 2017, and he finished the World Championships in Kona, no wetsuit. He swam the 3.8Ks in the sea, cycled through the lava fields in extreme heat and wind, and completed that marathon. So Hansen, who had never been out the country, never done a triathlon, let alone an Ironman, to have got to the World Championship, to the big stage, and competed there. That is just a phenomenal story.
Thanks, Paul, for sharing that. And to all the aspirational athletes out there, including myself, take that and, it's time to start training perhaps. And if not to compete, then certainly to visit the Nelson Mandela Bay. Panel, Charmaine, Sean, Paul, thank you so much for this very open and constructive conversation. It was really a pleasure speaking to you, and I feel privileged to have heard your insights today. To all those who joined us on the live webinar and to those who are also listening to the podcast, thank you for investing your time in listening to the conversation. Please like the podcast, share it with your friends, and also leave your comments. So as you reach for your own finish line, remember to lift others as you rise, and sustainably we shall thrive. Bye for now, and remember that anything is possible. Take care.